Hey everyone, Reid Henrichs with Valor, and today we're going to talk about natural rights and why they are so important to our lives. Let's go ahead and get started. One of the common themes that I've noticed is that most attorneys do not have an understanding, nor have they been educated in the concept of natural rights. I've spoken to dozens of lawyers who have told me that they never even learned about natural rights in law school, and that they only had to take one class in constitutional law, and that the other ones were simply optional. Now, this is kind of disturbing because natural law and natural rights are the entire foundation of our society. Our founders recognized this, and that's why in the Declaration of Independence that there are things mentioned such as life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And of course, when that term was understood to mean life, liberty, and property, in other words, the right to acquire, develop, and improve property as well. So one of the things I really want to discuss for you, and that's something that you can take into this weekend, is what are your natural rights? Well, the right to life. That means you have a right to live your life, and that you have a right to protect your life. That means we have a right to defend ourselves, and that means that we use firearms to defend ourselves or any other implement that we so choose. This is a classic example of what separates the United States from many other countries in the rest of the world, that we have the right to keep and bear arms enshrined in the Bill of Rights, which are the first 10 amendments to the United States Constitution. It is a recognized right. In fact, even if it wasn't in the Bill of Rights, it would be a recognized right, being that it is a natural right, the right to protect your life. We have a poor example of infringements on these natural rights very recently in Canada. I haven't forgotten my brothers and sisters, well, our cousins, I should say. I haven't forgotten them to the north. I know I've got a lot of people in Canada that watch the channel, and I've got a lot of friends that are Canadians as well. We're all descended from the same. You know, in Canada, they never really separated from Great Britain. Yeah, they're their own country, but they're still under the authority of the Crown. We divorced the Crown in 1776 in the United States, and so as such, we demanded our natural rights were recognized. In Canada, there is no recognition for the natural rights of keeping and bearing arms. Canada has a wonderful tradition of armed people up there. They have a tradition of using firearms in the wilderness. They have a tradition of fighting for their countries. You know, some of the fiercest fighters have been Canadians. This is evident in World War I, World War II, and continues all the way up until now. But unfortunately, you've got a very statist-minded set of people in government right now up in Canada. And I guess this is a warning to us in the United States that if government doesn't recognize your natural right to keep and bear arms, that they can just write it out of existence with the stroke of a pen. And that's what the bureaucrats in Canada are attempting to do right now. So what would my advice be to people up in Canada? Well, you've got your guns. You're there for self-defense and for hunting and providing and putting food on the table for you and your family. They're also there to protect yourself. You know, the weird thing is that William Blackstone, when he writes in his book, The Commentary on the Laws of England, which goes through the common law and the natural law of England, and this is several hundred years ago that he wrote this, he mentioned that the right to keep and bear arms was a fundamental act in any culture and one of the most important natural rights and one of the most important natural laws. This is a man who was very familiar with the laws of England going back all the way to medieval times and even before that. So you have to recognize that although you may be under the Crown, the recognition and the understanding of keeping arms was very obvious even to Blackstone several hundred years ago. And so maybe you need to remind your government right now and remind your parliament that that's an essential part of your lives. That's an essential part of living where you live. I couldn't imagine having such a rich heritage of firearms ownership such as in Canada and allowing this thing to continue. Well, you got to think about this. Who's going to enforce these mechanisms? Who's going to enforce these potential laws? Well, you got the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. I would ask you guys watching it up there, remember what the purpose of your office is. The purpose of your office is to maintain order, to uphold the rule of law, to protect people's natural rights. Well, if your government commands you to take away people's firearms, you're not protecting people's natural rights anymore. You're violating them. And here in the United States, we recognize that the only reason why we consent to be governed, the only reason we consent to have a government at all, is so that we can secure our natural rights, our inalienable rights, as the founders referred to them. And if government violates those, if government is the prime mover in stripping those away, they no longer govern by consent. And if you don't govern by consent, then that means you have to govern by force and coercion. And that means you have a totalitarian government. Well, an armed populace doesn't tolerate this very well. And it would be my suggestion that once you've turned the corner from consensual government to totalitarian government, when you turn that corner, well, you've got a hard choice to make, because you're either going to comply or you're going to rebel. And to rebel, you have to have arms to do that. There's a reason why governments worldwide are cracking down on firearms ownership. Hell, even here in the United States, certain states are trying to do this. Now, it's gone largely without conflict for some reason or another, and I never understood why. Because free men and women recognize the importance of maintaining their firearms. We also recognize that no genocide has ever taken place with an armed population. We also recognize that you cannot have a totalitarian government with an armed populace. So folks, I'm here to tell you that natural rights, and it not just comes to life, we've only covered life. We got a long way to go, so stand by. So we've covered the importance of a right to life and a right to be able to protect it. Let's talk about liberty. Liberty is such a crucial aspect of a society. You cannot have a free society that is constantly based on coercion. Follow this or else you'll be imprisoned or killed. That is not the purpose of government. The purpose of government is to uphold our liberty, to uphold our freedom. And that means freedom of choice. And that means that we have rights retained that are not even mentioned in the Constitution and that are not even mentioned in several laws. Montesquieu in the Spirit of Laws says that the spirit of laws is for government to protect our natural rights. That means we can live our life as we see it fit, provided we're not harming anybody else. That means if I decide I'm going to go to the store, I'm going to be able to go to the store. And for all you freak show statists out there that are so concerned about people not wearing masks in public, if you're really that afraid of getting sick, then hide in your little house. You're probably used to it anyway. You're probably used to not interacting with people. You're probably used to not having any friends. You're probably used to people not liking you. No problem there. Sit at home and type on the computer, type on the internet, that anybody cares what you say. So if you're that afraid of getting sick, stay at home. For the rest of us who live a normal life, who like to interact with people, who like to help other people, who like to go to the store, who like to go out to dinner and go eat things to help support local businesses, who like to support entertainers, who like to support a functioning, healthy, vibrant economy, we're going to live our life. And you know, tens, if not hundreds of millions of people are doing that right now. The anomaly is people not doing those things. So folks, liberty means that we can do things according to what we want to do, provided we're not harming others. And living your life and going out and buying things and going out and eating, that's not harming others. And you have to look at the numbers. I've told you this in videos countless times. Look at the numbers of reality. Look at the numbers. They don't lie. Even with the overinflated death rate that they've had with this whole thing, it's still nothing of what it was sold to be. It's not worth the cost. And I'm going to tell you guys something else. Here's another cost that doesn't get counted into this whole situation. For every 1% of unemployment, that equates to 40,000 additional deaths. We're right now at almost 15% unemployment. When this whole thing started, it was about 4% or less. That's 10% more. And as I said, every 1% of unemployment equates to 40,000 additional deaths outside of the virus. I want you to think about those numbers. So what's more helpful, the cure or the disease? And that brings me to the last point here, that we have a right to property, the right to acquire property, the right to improve it, the right to constantly work on it. And when we've got property rights violations, you have local and state governments and unelected bureaucrats, people who do not even have an office, people who haven't even passed laws, people who haven't even once gone through the constitutional process of doing anything, telling people that they can't earn a living, telling people that they can't go someplace, telling people that they can't open a business. In Texas, of all places, you have a bar owner being arrested with an MRAP and SWAT team. What piece of crap police officers would do that? And you know, here's the problem, guys, is that I've trained with these guys out in West Texas. I've not trained them, I've trained with them. And they can't shoot. They're not good. They didn't even know how to clear anything. Like, so the point that they have to suit up in armor in an MRAP and forcibly close a bar, Thank God for people like Governor Abbott. Thank God for people like the Lieutenant Governor in Texas and you know, who have said, we will pay the woman's fine. But the very fact that she was arrested to begin with for opening, that's pretty pathetic. You got hairstylists that want to open and cut hair. You've got people that need haircuts, me, myself included right here. You've got people willing to patronize businesses. They're willing to do that. And you've got unelected people saying, no, you can't do that. Who in the hell are you to tell certain people what they can do with their property? It's not your property. You didn't buy it. You're not the one who improved it. You're not the one who sunk their life savings into a business. You're government employees, which means you've never worked an honest day in your life, which means you've never taken financial risk, which means you have never been an entrepreneur. So you don't know what it's like to run a business. Instead of getting a guaranteed government paycheck paid for by the taxpayers, why don't you go out and dare to succeed? Why don't you dare to achieve? And they won't do it because they're cowardly pieces of crap. And I'll tell you something else, guys. When we've reached a point in society when government is violating our rights by preventing us from having firearms and way to protect ourselves, when we have it when they are trying to infringe on our liberty, and we have it when they're trying to infringe on our property, we are turning a corner. We're turning a corner. And you know, the sad thing about it is that there's so many people out there who will willingly give up those rights and give them away because of afraid bullcrap propaganda. And that's exactly what this is. And make no mistake about it, government will never, ever forget how easy it was to do what they've done the last 2 months. They will never forget how easy it was and how willing so many people were to give away their rights. Well, I am here to tell you that there is a remnant in this country right now who will not give up their natural rights and who will not ever acquiesce to what they want to do when they are violating those three things. Our foundational charter of governance has, we have government only ruling by consent in order to secure life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And when you violate that, you no longer have consent to govern. And if you want to push the issue and you want to keep going down this road, I'm here to tell you that my ancestors definitely made their voices heard physically, vocally, in print, and everything else. And there are a lot of people watching this video that know exactly what's going on. If I seem a little heated in this video today, folks, that's because I am. Because I hate tyranny, I hate totalitarian government, I hate socialism, I hate all the other stuff that goes along with it. It is absolutely repugnant to my soul to see that kind of stuff happen. And that's why I do what I do and teach people how to protect themselves against violent criminals with or without a badge. That also is one of the reasons why I help teach them to protect their rights, inform them about the Constitution, teach history, and teach spirit. We fight with our spirit, and that means right here and right here. And you got to have that fire inside. You got to have that American spirit that says, you know what? This country was built by tough people. We need to uphold that heritage, and we can't keep tolerating this kind of stuff. That is why it's so important to band together. That is why it's so important to be able to be proficient in the use of firearms, and that is why it's so important for you to have a faith in not only each other, but a faith in the ultimate purpose of the United States of America, and that is to show the rest of the world an example of what a free nation looks like, what a free society looks like. And when we see people being violated in our own country, we cannot tolerate that. Thank God I live in an area, and I live in a part of this country where people look out for one another, where businesses are open, where people are interacting, where people are growing their own food, where people are armed, where the police understand how important it is to support natural rights. And we've got a good sheriff here in Claiborne County. And I'll tell you, folks, if you don't have it in your area, those kind of things, then you need to be the change. You need to be the change that you want to see, and you need to start living the example. You need to start leading by example. If you want to change the world, start with your own neighborhood. Start with your own family. Start with your own friends. Stop looking to messiahs outside of yourself to help right the ship. You need to start doing it yourself. And folks, if you want to learn how to protect yourself against tyranny and you want to learn how to protect yourself against violent criminals, come out to Valor Ridge and we can help you with that. Our classes are filling up very fast, even amidst all this stuff going on. Every day it seems like I'm selling out a class later on this year, so I don't want to turn anybody away. I hate doing it, but I have to because we have to keep the classes the sizes that they are. So we recommend registering at your earliest convenience so that you don't miss out. This is Reid Henrichs of Valor Ridge reminding you the lessons that we learn are written on the tombstones of others. We'll see you on the ridge.